Do you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share with us? Send us an email with your story for a chance of it being featured on Weird World. In the quiet hills of Tuscany, nestled between the towns of Cennina and Capanoli, in the province of Arezzo, an extraordinary encounter would forever change the life of a humble farmer and add a compelling chapter to the rapidly growing catalogue of UFO accounts at the time. This is the story of the Cennina landing of 1954, one of the most meticulously documented close encounters in UFO history, classified as a CE3, or Close Encounter of the Third Kind, by Dr. J. Allen Hynek's system of categorization. On the morning of November 1st, 1954, 40-year-old Rosa Lotti embarked on what should have been a routine journey from her farm, La Collina, to attend church in the nearby town of Cennina. The date was significant. It was All Saints' Day, a Catholic feast day, and Rosa had risen early to make her way to both the church and cemetery. In her hands she carried a bunch of carnations, intended for the altar of the Madonna Pellegrina, whose procession had taken place the previous evening. At approximately 6:30 a.m, Rosa set out along the familiar footpath that wound through fields and thickets toward town. As was her custom to preserve her best shoes, she walked barefoot, carrying her stockings and shoes to be worn once she reached the first houses of Cennina. Though she rarely ventured into town, spending most of her days tending to her arduous farming duties as a mother of 4 children, Rosa knew this path intimately, having traversed it countless times, even in darkness, without incident. The morning air was crisp as Rosa made her way through a small clearing among the shrubs and sparse trees. It was here, near a pine tree at the edge of a grassy area, that she encountered something that would challenge her understanding of reality. Before her stood a strange object with a distinctive silhouette which she likened to a spindle. This object was best described as 2 bells or cones joined at their bases, creating a structure over 2 metres in height and approximately 1 metre and 20 centimetres wide at its middle point. The exterior appeared to be made of highly polished light metal, though its surface had an unusual quality that Rosa described as being covered with leather. The apparent craft's most striking features were positioned in its central section, where it bulged outward. 2 portholes faced opposite each other, and between them, in the lower cone, was a glass door that stood open. Through this opening, Rosa could discern 2 small seats, similar in size to those used by children. Throughout her encounter, she noted that the craft remained completely silent. The encounter escalated from a mere sighting, however, when 2 beings suddenly emerged from behind some broom bushes, effectively blocking Rosa's path. Standing no taller than a 5-year-old child, approximately 1 metre in height, these entities appeared almost human, but possessed distinctive features that marked them as something else entirely. As Rosa would later explain, it would have taken 2 of those things to make a man, but they were very fine-looking, even though rather old. The beings wore grey overalls that covered their entire bodies, including their feet, complemented by short cloaks of the same material. Over their one-piece suits, they wore vests fastened with buttons that Rosa described as shining like stars. Their trousers were form-fitting, reminiscent of thermal underwear worn by local farmers during winter months. The detail of their attire was remarkable. Rosa noted that their faces showed the shading of a recently cut beard, adding an unexpectedly mundane detail to their otherwise extraordinary appearance. Their faces, while proportionate and described as beautiful by Rosa, bore several unusual characteristics. Though they appeared somewhat aged, their expressions were animated and friendly. Their eyes were described as magnificent and full of intelligence. Their noses were of normal shape, but their upper lips curled slightly at the centre, exposing short, broad teeth that protruded similarly to those of rabbits. These teeth appeared as though they had been filed down, yet remained strong and broad. Their heads were adorned with helmets featuring leather-like discs covering their ears and a band across their foreheads. The interaction that followed lasted approximately 10 minutes and was marked by attempted communication. The beings approached Rosa, speaking in what she described as a language reminiscent of Chinese, repeatedly uttering sounds like liu, lai, loi, and lao. The older appearing of the two, who was also described as more dark-haired, seemed particularly jovial, laughing and attempting to establish communication through gestures. Despite their strange appearance, their behaviour was notably non-threatening, suggesting an attempt at peaceful contact. In a surprising turn of events, they took interest in Rosa's belongings, snatching both of her bunches of carnations and one of her black stockings. When she protested timidly, the older seeing being returned some of the flowers but kept 5, which she wrapped in the stocking and threw into the craft through its small opening. Rosa, standing approximately 2 metres away, was able to observe the craft's interior, noting the cramped space containing 2 small round seats positioned in front of the side portholes. The encounter took an even more puzzling turn when one of the beings retrieved what appeared to be a cylinder-shaped object from the craft, described as a roll or ingot, brown in colour with a smooth surface. The being held this object at stomach level, pointing it towards his head as if preparing to take a photograph. This action proved to be the breaking point for Rosa's courage, prompting her to retreat, though she had the distinct impression that the being was attempting to offer her the brown object. After running approximately 100 metres, she looked back to see the beings still standing near their craft, engaged in conversation with each other. Without waiting to see more, Rosa continued her flight to the church, where she immediately shared her extraordinary experience with acquaintances. As fantastical as Rosa's account may seem, the physical evidence supporting it proved to be substantial. Approximately 30 minutes after the encounter, local residents investigating the site discovered a hole in the ground, as if created by a large pointed pole. The cavity measured about 10 centimetres in diameter and 15 centimetres deep. This finding was independently verified by Chief Inspector Zelima Botarelli of the Ambra Carabinieri, the police force for the town of Ambra, who happened to be hunting in the vicinity. The area around Cennina had been a hotspot for unusual area phenomena, both before and after Rosa's encounter. Multiple witnesses reported sightings of luminous objects seen landing and taking off from the same wooded area where the encounter took place, as well as observations of low-altitude flying devices in the vicinity. Supporting testimony would eventually emerge from multiple witnesses. 2 young children, 6-year-old Amelia and 9-year-old Marcello Torzini, who were tending to pigs in the same wooded area that morning, reportedly observed Rosa conversing with the strange beings. The elder child, Marcello, attempted to alert his father, but by the time they returned, the encounter had concluded, though the father was able to observe the ground trace himself. While some controversy surrounds the children's testimony due to apparent contradictions in their accounts, their initial observation adds an intriguing layer to the case. Additionally, a gamekeeper named Rossi, who was approximately 200 metres from the clearing, recalled hearing voices in conversation, though he dismissed it at the time as mere chatter of women. Notably, the evening before the encounter, there had been discussion of flying saucers at Rosa's home, a topic of considerable public interest during that period due to a wave of sightings throughout Italy. The case garnered significant media attention, with multiple Italian newspapers covering the story, including La Nazione Indiana, La Nazione Sera, Il Giorno del Mattino, and others. The incident was documented in various issues between November 1954 and March 1955, with follow-up coverage appearing in subsequent years. The Cennina landing was designated as case number 92 in the files of the UFO section of the Florentine Humanistic Cultural Movement, or MUF, and has been studied by multiple UFO research organisations. 18 years after the incident, the Research Centre for the Study of UFO Phenomena of Prato conducted a thorough examination of the case. Their investigation, led by Ciro Menicucci in 1972, gathered additional supporting testimony and confirmed many of the original details. A subsequent investigation by researcher Paolo Fiorino in 1973 further documented the case. In January 1993, nearly 4 decades after the encounter, Rosa Lotti confirmed in an interview that she had received numerous visits following the disclosure of her experience. One particularly interesting connection emerged when she mentioned a woman from Genoa who reported having a very similar sighting. While skeptics have proposed various explanations, from hallucination to elaborate hoax, none have adequately addressed all aspects of this remarkable encounter. A mysterious postcard sent to Giornale del Mattino a few days after the incident, postmarked from Rome, claimed responsibility for staging the event, but no evidence was ever provided to support this assertion. The suggestion of hallucination seems particularly implausible given the detailed and consistent nature of Rosa's testimony, as well as the physical evidence and corroborating witnesses. Later investigations revealed additional details about the landing site. One witness, who was a boy at the time, reported observing not only the hole but also traces of burning around it, accompanied by a strong odour similar to overheated brakes. While this testimony emerged many years after the fact, raising questions about its reliability, it adds to the complex web of evidence surrounding the case. The Cennina landing remains one of the most significant close encounter cases in Italian UFO history and maintains its position as one of the most credible incidents in global UFO research. The combination of physical evidence, multiple witnesses, detailed testimony, and the consistent nature of Rosa Lotti's account has earned it a permanent place in the annals of unexplained phenomena. As noted by Jacques Vallée in his Century of Landings, the case represents a unique example of a close encounter that combines both the technological aspects of UFO phenomena with the more puzzling behavioural characteristics of their alleged occupants.